This is the MSI P65 9SD. It is a thin and light gaming slash creator laptop with an impressive specs. It has an Intel Core i7-9750H paired with an Nvidia GTX 1660 Ti, but it is the Max Q version. It's definitely capable of running almost all modern AAA title games at 60 FPS or more. It has 16GB of RAM running in dual channel and 512GB of M.2 NVMe SSD. The laptop has a silver finish with a black keyboard and white lighting. No RGBs here. It has a really big touchpad with Windows Precision Driver, and on the top left of the touchpad, there's a fingerprint reader. The touchpad is pretty smooth and works quite well. It physically clicks down everywhere on the bottom part, although I do have some trouble with the clicking not registering if I click it on the upper part. The build quality felt very nice. There's minimal screen flex and keyboard flex, even if I push it down hard. You can open the screen easy enough with just one hand. It has a 15.6-inch Full HD 1920 by 1080 screen with a 144Hz refresh rate. It's an IPS level panel with around 97% of sRGB and around 73% of Adobe RGB. The screen brightness is just under 300 nits at 100%. The bezels are very thin and the screen goes all the way back. There is a 720p webcam on the top bezel. It is nothing special, but with thin bezel it's nice that MSI could still put the webcam on top of the screen. The laptop itself is 35.77cm in width, 24.77cm in depth, and 1.79cm in height. Considering it is running an i7 CPU with a 1660 Ti GPU, it is one of the more thinner and lighter laptops for gaming or content creation, weighing in about 1.9 kilograms. For communication, it has a Gigabit Ethernet, 802.11 AC Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth 5. On the left side, from left to right, it has a Kensington lock, air exhaust fan, Ethernet port, 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A port, headphone jack, and mic jack. On the right side, from left to right, it has a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port, USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C port with DisplayPort and Thunderbolt 3 support, mini DisplayPort, HDMI port capable of 4K 60Hz, power input, and an air exhaust fan. On the back side, there's only some air exhaust fan, and on the front there's a battery status light on the right side. Underneath, there's only air intake holes. There are two 2-watt speakers on the bottom left and right. It can get pretty loud, but the quality is just average. Even if the fans are at full speeds, you can still hear the sound very clear. Powering this laptop is a 4-cell 82 watt-hour battery. When using it for light work, the battery can last to around the 6-hour mark. It has a 180 watt power brick, which is adequate for powering this laptop. For upgradability, it has 2 slots of RAM, maxing at 64GB. There is an M.2 SSD slot that's currently being used by the 512 SSD, and one empty M.2 SSD combo slot that can be used for either NVMe PCIe Gen 3 or SATA. The Wi-Fi card is also swappable. Unfortunately, if you want to upgrade more than just the Wi-Fi card, you need to take the motherboard off of the laptop. The motherboard on this laptop is upside down, unlike most laptops, so the only access to the RAM and SSD slots is to take the motherboard off and flip it around. There are 3 fans and 6 heat pipes to keep the laptop cool. The air comes from the bottom intakes and the ones above the keyboard, and the air goes out to the left, right, and the back. This laptop gets quite hot when using it for heavy work, but it is expected since it is a thin laptop with mid-end specs. At idle and light work like watching YouTube or browsing the internet, the CPU gets to around 45 degrees Celsius, quite hotter than laptops with similar specs. When stress testing the CPU, it goes to around 3.9 to 4.0 GHz, but it is constantly thermal throttling at 95 degrees Celsius. I managed to undervolt the CPU to minus 125 mV on Intel XTU, and it can stay at 4.0 GHz constantly at only around 85 degrees Celsius. The fans get pretty loud at full speed, but I don't find it distracting at all. When at full load, the surface of the laptop, especially the upper part, gets pretty hot. The area near the WASD key is not that hot, but the metal part of the laptop and the middle part of the keyboard can get uncomfortably hot. The GPU cooling is really great under full load. It only goes around 60 degrees Celsius. On the other hand, this laptop is getting a hard time keeping the CPU temps down, but the minus 125mV undervolt helps. On Cinebench R15, the CPU manages to get a score of 1295. On Cinebench R20, the score is 2985. Under full CPU and GPU load, the CPU is once again thermal throttling at 95 degrees Celsius, but with the undervolt applied, it manages to get a constant core frequency of 4.0 GHz. The GPU under full CPU and GPU load stays at around 65 degrees Celsius with a core clock of around 1500 MHz. Honestly, I think this laptop is really great. The performance is really good. Even though it's throttling, the CPU manages to maintain a core frequency of 4 GHz under full CPU and GPU load. The temperature on the GPU is also very good. The screen is just what I wanted. It has a really good color accuracy and contrast, and it is also a 144Hz refresh rate screen. The placement of the webcam is also nice because some other laptops with thin bezels don't usually put the webcams on top like the Lenovo Legion or the Gigabyte Aero, or even have none at all like Asus ROG laptops. The design of this laptop is also very nice. It doesn't have a gamery look like most other expensive laptops. It has a very professional look. The thin bezels also make this laptop look very compact. It is also light, and I could carry it no problem. I myself am not a fan of laptop keyboards, but this one feels okay. I could get used to it in a couple of days. I like that the keyboard doesn't have a numpad, so it doesn't feel cramped. The battery life on this laptop is also really great, way above the average of other gaming laptops. I also really like that MSI separated the mic and headphone jack. I find it more practical, and I don't need an adapter if I want to plug both in. But a little nitpick, I think they could place the audio jacks a bit further apart so I could plug the cable off easier. I think the biggest downside of this laptop is the upside down motherboard. Upgrading and taking care of this machine will not be easy. Also, at this price range, there's definitely better laptops for performance, like the Lenovo Legion Wi-Fi 40, Acer Helios 300, or even the MSI GL65. But these laptops are bigger and heavier, and the battery doesn't last that long. It is something that you have to pay for because there's only a few laptops in this price range that has a good battery life. The new 2020 Ryzen laptops are also really good for its price, but unfortunately I didn't find anything that suits me well. Most of the 2020 Ryzen laptops that are already out now doesn't have a good screen or a webcam, or some other things that might be a deal breaker for me. But if performance is what you're looking for, by any means, go for it. If you don't like your laptop running hot, then I suggest that you find a different laptop. Its thin and light build is good for mobility, but it's really bad for thermals. Obviously, you can improve the temps by undervolting the CPU or changing the thermal paste with a better one. But if you can't be bothered with any of this laptop might not be for you. Overall, I can recommend this laptop for its mobility, its specs, and the design. If you want to do some light editing that requires a good screen color accuracy, this is a good choice. Playing esport games are also really nice since it has a 144Hz refresh rate. But if you're not really in the rush to buy a new laptop right now, I suggest that you wait until you find a perfect laptop that suits you. That's it for the review. Thank you and have a nice day.